The Nissan Nation podcast is a presentation of DRB and KGB Media.
Recorded live, coast to coast, it's the Nissan Nation podcast. From camping, racing, and all points in between. The NNP is your Nissan Nation podcast. Now start your engines and welcome in the hosts, David and Danny.
On the wings of an angel, we are the Nissan Nation podcast. What is going on, everybody?
In the arms of the angel, fly away from here.
Danny, not too much.
What up, Dave?
Not too much. We're gonna pay royalties if you sing. You sing too much of that.
Well, I doubt they would even know what song that was after I was done singing it.
Oh man, happy to chat with my buddy Danny. It's been a month, Danny. What is this?
It has been. We skipped a show, and to all of our viewers, we're sorry. We got no excuses.
Well, we have one excuse.
But we got too lazy.
Yeah, and I'm eating high on the hog right now. I ain't got time for this shit.
Yeah, Dave's working his cheeks off out there in Tennessee. Apparently, they're building some stuff or something like that. Who knows?
I don't even know, man. Tell me what I'm doing, Danny.
Hey, I was curious why you got Corby's running around with you? Is that your new apprentice?
Yeah, Corby is now my the Corbs, as they call him at work.
Corby, that's what I call him.
They asked him the other day how old he was because they're like, "Are you 14?"
Oh man, I bet he was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I was like, "No, he's 19." I said, "Hey, son, that stuff pays off for you when you get in your 30s and you still look 20s."
Yeah, you'll enjoy that later in life.
Yeah, I've got some friends that are in high school, man, that I went with, and by 30 they looked like they were 60. So.
Yeah, no, I've seen a couple that they ain't fresh. They ain't fresh anymore. Like me, I'm fresh and clean. It's all the salt and sea air.
Dude,
keeps me exfoliating.
Where's the wave tonight? People can't see it, but there's no real Danny wave tonight.
It's lighting. It's there. It's there.
It's lighting. Danny's kind of got that GI look tonight, man. He must have actually had to work.
Yeah, I got promotions coming up, so I gotta be studying my cheeks off, man.
Ooh. What level will you be now?
I'm trying to get up into the master sergeant rank.
Wow.
Right now I'm a technical sergeant right now, so I'm trying to be a master sergeant.
Well, I'm a master of many things too, Danny.
I master a lot myself.
Oh, this show is good.
Nissan Nation podcast. What do we have going?
Well, we got a good show tonight, guys. Me and Danny, we asked a bunch of questions this afternoon just to kind of see what was going on, get a feel of what the common folk there that don't have a podcast want to hear us talk about and stuff. And of course, I'm a bottle of wine in, Danny, and I've got me a Corona Extra in my hand right now, sir.
A bottle in.
Yeah, dude.
This is gonna be a good show, Dave. I already feel it. I'm accidentally drinking my wife's $50 bottle of champagne myself.
Whoops.
Because I ran out of my favorite wine, unbeknownst to me, last night.
It's bad.
So I poured some expensive champagne, not knowing it was expensive champagne. Because I'm classy like that out here, Dave.
Hey, pinky's up, sir. Pinky's up. And that's Danny. I'm watching him sitting there guzzle some expensive champagne down. So, Danny, what's going on in the world, man? I mean, we got spring coming up, and I know you got Gone Moab coming up, and all kinds of things. I've seen you've been modding your vehicle. You've kind of did some stuff on Facebook Live with Niztec, man. Anything cool going on in your world?
Yeah. So I had a little self mod day the other day. And my truck's in shambles right now. In truth, it's in shambles. I think last time I talked about pulling the steering rack out and replacing that. Pulled the grill off. I'm redoing the grill because it needs a new paint job kind of on it. It had been chipped from too many rocks and stuff. So the grill is out of it. I pulled the headlights out. Those are getting redone by Niztec. So I have like some Buster used ones in there. So the skid plates are still off because there's no point in putting them on right now since I'm just driving to work and back with it. And for a while there, my Leitner Designs bed rack was off.
You were just running naked, man.
Yeah, we have the Leitner Designs. It's like the active cargo system. It's called. They have a new design. So my rack was a prototype, and they have a full new design. it's basically the same rack, but it's been strengthened, and we had some changes that we wanted to do to be able to access the full utility rack, and just a bunch of little things to make it like a production product that that had everything we wanted. So that's the new part.
Is this model double D for this rack?
This is Danny's Divergence. Model Danny's Divergence. This is a double D.
Nice, man.
No, so that came in, and I was pretty stoked. I got another one of those cargo pods. I guess you probably haven't seen it in person, but
I've seen your
one
old
of the
rack.
Coolest bed rack designs.
Yeah,
did you see my rack?
Well, I seen the old rack, the one I guess you had built for it at one time.
Yeah. The old rack that old rack is gone. This the Lightner Designs one's really, really cool. So I got that installed with some new gear pods, which are like basically giant big thick plastic
like
storage bins that slide into the side and bolt into it. So I got that all loaded, set up, which is pretty sweet. It's got my Rotopacks, gas and water and stuff like that I can put on the sides of there.
Hey, speaking of those things, and I was discussing with another person. We were talking about your truck the other day. When you put those pods in, man, by the time a pickup truck, especially like mine with my tire carrier basically in my window, it gets difficult to see out sometimes. When you add all these pods and stuff, man, is it just like rolling with a solid topper on the back, or do you?
No, it depends on how you set it up, and I usually set mine up to where, unless I'm going on a trip, I pull a lot of the stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on so simply. It basically takes me about 10 minutes to mount everything on and off. So I usually roll pretty light. I have a couple pods on there that I store odds and ends, maybe some recovery gear at all times, jumper cables and that kind of stuff. As far as being able to see, the way I have it set up pretty good right now, I have really good visibility, not a big deal. But I think that's partly because I don't have it, loaded up. When I'm going on a trip, I have very little visibility because I have, max tracks on the side and pods on it and gas and water stored up. If I'm going on a big trip, there's like 6 gallons of gas and 2 gallons of water, and there's bags and boxes in the back and tents and stuff like that on my roof. So
well, I know, like looking, because I've explored these racks a little bit. I thought I was going to do something on my my Frontier, but I guess the one you're using does give you like you can customize the design for maybe each trip, or sometimes when you just build them, it's strictly here's what you can put on it. And
yeah, the rack that I have is extremely user friendly as far as like outfitting it the way you want. It has like these channels that you can slide screws into, and you could put panels all the way. You could panel the whole thing in, and it'd be a shell, really. Or you can just bolt little things here and there. It's the sky's the limit for how much stuff you can do on it. So I think that's why I like it the most, is because, and I'm still playing with it, like trying to decide what I like best, where I like things. Do I put all the gas cans on the inside, and on the top or underneath the rooftop tent? I could put stuff there. It's extremely versatile when it comes to all that stuff. So, and I think that's why I like it most, because I'm really fidgety. Like, I change things up on my truck like all the time. So,
I follow you on Facebook. I see all your changes, and
my truck is as ADD as I am, dude. I'll tell you that much.
I'll say, man. So we'll give the audience here a little bit of heads up. So I'm actually looking to get rid of my Frontier. So if anybody at the podcast here would like to buy a slightly used Betty White, but no, really, it's you've followed me a little bit with my SAS build, and it's towards the end of the project, and it's come to the conclusion that it'll be driver friendly, but for the way the truck's built now, I'm gonna have to tow it where I want to, because I'm gonna want to push it to the limits, and So I hit you up the other day. We were discussing, hey, towing, and when you did your Facebook chat today, it kind of came up a little bit of people were asking about Titans and Frontiers and stuff, which led me down that path of, when you're looking for a truck, how does it fit your lifestyle? And I know most people, they just need something to throw some trash in the back of it or just, light duty stuff. But when you're looking at a truck, Danny, especially for like the SoCal lifestyle, man, because I don't foresee like a full size truck for you on a daily thing would benefit versus your little truck. What is your opinions of the little trucks versus?
I grew up driving Ford Rangers. My first truck was an 86 Ford Ranger, and then I ended up having 3 more after that. And so I grew up, well, my first car was a 73 Ford van, but and that was nice and big. But then I got like a little single cab short bed Ranger and mobbed that all over the place. It beat it up and ruined it basically. But so I kind of grew up driving really small trucks. And I think I got really used to the maneuverability and the lightweight, like going over bumps and stuff like, going out of driveways and stuff like that. Where like, I mean, with my current truck, you put a little bit of suspension on them where they're, you can actually drive out of a driveway without slowing down a little bit, I got really used to that, and I love the maneuverability, and you sweep into a little parking spot. You're not 14-point turning.
I don't know. I've drove these Frontiers.
The Frontier has a very big. I mean, it's not the most friendly when it comes to turning radius. I mean, but compared to an F-150 or something, it's not
right.
It's still very versatile. The size and everything about it, So I'm really biased when it comes to small trucks. I mean, and that bled over into, the race truck scene is I love little trucks racing. I don't know what it is, but for large utility, I did tow my Xterra on a trailer, like a big trailer with the Xterra. You're probably looking at pushing the 6,500 pound towing limit to the very max, and I towed it with the Frontier, and and it was probably maybe 100 miles, I think, maybe 120 miles.
Is that what we did that day?
I think so. It was maybe 2 hours of driving, I think, roughly 2.5 hours max, if that. And it did it really well, and I was really blown away with how well it did it. However, I would say that it's not like, if I had to do it on a regular basis, it wouldn't be the ideal situation at all, because it's pretty flat.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're pretty flat out there, and that's one of the things I'm looking at with needing a tow rig is like, well, I know my Frontier would do it. It would pull the vehicle with a trailer, and especially if I, bare bones light trailer. But would it do it comfortably? Because I am going up and down hills here, and it's not huge grades. It's not like the Rocky Mountains, but I am going up, the Appalachian Mountains, and
yeah,
that's been my concern. And of course, we had talked the other day about it. And I thought I was impressed with how your truck, when I was out in California, how it did tow your Xterra. And I thought, well, if Danny's truck can do it, other than needing some new leaf springs, I don't know why mine couldn't. And then you started bringing up, yeah, but you're going up hills and stuff, and the transmissions aren't, really built to do that.
Yeah, it's, and you know what? I think a big thing too was like you mentioned leaf springs. I'm like, I have a really good solid leaf pack in the back, which can really make a difference. So it's not bouncing off.
What is your setup on the back of yours?
I think it's 400 pounds over stock, and then it was about a 4-inch lift, and when I don't have a load in it, it's a little bit stink bug. I'm kind of like anti-Cali Broline, which is pretty upsetting to me.
You know,
it upsets me when I don't have a good load in there. But I think that mattered a lot to keep, because when you remember when we loaded it up, it didn't sink down real low. It was nice and level. It was almost perfect. But my thought on it is the Frontier is great if it comes to a pinch and you have to pull a 6,500 pound trailer, you can do it. But if you're going to be pulling a 6,500 pound trailer, 6 hours or 4 hours somewhere on regular basis. I mean, a couple times a year or a few times a year. It's not something I'd use as a planned tow rig.
Right.
It's good for a pinch, like it'll do it, but you're asking a lot. And especially and my truck wasn't geared. Maybe it would have been better if I had put 410s on it, but for what it was, it did an amazing job. However, I don't think it should do that job all the time. I wouldn't want to put it under those kinds of strains and loads regularly.
Well, that kind of bleeds into one of our listeners' questions of Mr. Leland Merrill. He's asking if regearing the M205, what's the gear kind of choice there? Is it a 410 or a 456? And,
right.
And of course, he's also wanting to know a cold air intake. And my view on a cold air intake is, they're a waste of time unless it's a snorkel. And really, I know where he's at in the desert, man. A snorkel would benefit you a lot on the trails. But other than that, I'm not sold on cold air intakes.
Yeah, if you do want to go that route, Volant's pretty solid. I don't for the second gens.
Mm-hmm.
It allows for a bigger, but in truth, unless you like up-rev program, which if you're gonna do exhaust and intake, get an up-rev program, and it will make the up-rev programming work correctly.
Right.
It will advance the up-rev program as opposed to just putting them on. You'll see very nominal differences. You might hear a lot, and it'll make you feel faster. You may feel a minuscule butt dyno low end, but in truth, it's very minimal. It's very minimal. And if you're going to spend $300, I'd say spend it on something else.
Right.
That's something that you're really going to use and really going to see the difference on.
Right. So, but back to the full size thing, man. I'm really torn because there, like everybody, there's a price range you got to stay in. And me and my wife Kelly, we kind of know where we want to be at. The first generation Titan is just not a go for me. I love the truck, but when you sit in it, even a 2014, it looks like it's from 2000. I mean, it's just they never did anything with it, so that kind of bums me out because around here you can pick up Titans fairly cheap. Yeah,
I have a question, and this just came into my mind because I was just perusing the internets and stuff. Apparently, and maybe you can answer this, and I should, since I am one of the Nissan Nation podcast characters. When did the variable valve technology come into the 5.6? Did they change that mid-year to have a VVT on the 5.6 liter? Do you know?
That was for the Infiniti.
Might be a Google thing. 2011,
I think, when they brought the Patrol / Infiniti QX60 or whatever they call it now. That's when they brought the direct injection into that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one, Danny.
It's kind of popped up with all these guys talking about the 5.6 going into the Frontiers, and a lot of the Titan guys saying, the newer VVT is better. I want to say that there's a production split in the 5.6 where they started introducing, like I said, the VVT variable valve technology where it varies the valve lift on the on the valves, basically, to allow for.
I wonder if that's
more adjustability in.
Well, what was it like? 2007, I think, is when or maybe 6 when they bumped the horsepower up from 305 to 315. Maybe that was a part of the.
I bet you that's what it was, because that's what it would do.
But
it's an emissions thing too. They can overlap intake, exhaust, and there's a lot of stuff into it. I don't want to go into it.
We don't want to get Nissan in trouble.
Been doing this for a long time now.
I think Volkswagen's with their emissions things is let's not get Nissan involved in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, the first generation Titan, though I love the aggressive look of it. It's the interior just killed it for me. So that's not an option. So I'm looking at the new Titans. And, they start out about 32, which is that's kind of close to my top budget for a tow rig. But I've also got to look at, I don't use the vehicle often. My Frontier, maybe it gets drove twice on the weekends, and that's about it. I've got a company Nissan so I don't. Whatever I end up buying is never going to get a lot of miles put on it unless I drive to Moab or something. But so I'm looking at it kind of Nissan, and I'm going, well, which would it be? Would I go gas or would I go diesel? Well, I know nothing. I know what I've read online about the new diesel, but I'm not one of these brodozer guys that lives and dies with a Cummins turbo, trying to make 1,200 horsepower out of that engine. So I know nothing of diesels other than, it's a special fuel. And not to sound stupid with that, because here in the States, we just don't deal with diesel like the rest of the world does. So, yeah, and I understand the differences of towing and what we were talking earlier. The gas is around 10,000, just a little under 10,000 pounds, I think, what a gas will tow.
Yeah.
And the diesel's up to 12.5, I think, is kind of maxed out on it, even though I think it can do more than that. And everything
I think you start running a chassis weight or gross vehicle weight. The truck only weighs about, let's see what, I think I wrote it down, 6,500 pounds. So if you're going to go over that weight for towing, you want a truck that actually weighs a little bit more.
Yeah.
So your trailer's not triple the weight of your
so
truck.
The trailer's not driving you around.
Exactly.
But, so I'm weighing these options, and I'm going, well, it would probably be gas, because everything what is it, the depth that you have to put in it, the goofy fluid and
diesel. Well, DPF is diesel particulate fuel, or there's a couple different names for them. Urea, it's called urea for depending on what type of company is deciding that they're going to call it. All
right, so we're just going to call it piss fluid.
Yeah.
But so I'm looking at that, and I'm going, okay, yeah, diesel's going to overall, if I was traveling to the West Coast or something, that for towing my rig, because that's what I'm looking at with this, strictly to tow my vehicle. Yeah, that's the better option. But at fuel prices, I know it varies from state to state, but we're probably 50 cents to 60 cents more on diesel than just gas is. And then I gotta, you gotta go through the depth or whatever it's called. And I'm looking at the price of per mile, and it's just like, for the few miles I would ever drive it, it doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm pushing myself to gas. But then I'm still looking at that $32,000 price tag. And yeah, the new Titan, I like the way it looks, other than the single cab. I love that engine. It's a proven engine. Infinity's ran that engine forever now. It comes down to price, and I'm looking at some of the big three, and and of course it's a Nissan podcast, but I'll be as honest as I can about it. When you look at the price of a used vehicle, I can pick up a 13 Dodge Ram, whatever you want to call it, all day long for $24,000, and that's the Hemi. I could.
Well, the problem with that, Dave, is that you wouldn't be able to come on the Nissan Nation podcast anymore if you bought a non-Nissan vehicle.
Well, I still have a couple sitting in my driveway, Danny.
Sorry.
Great. I'll be back.
I guess my wife has a Kia.
There you go.
For those of you,
but I want to
that listen to this podcast. Just so you know, a Kia is a great vehicle if you don't like cars.
Well, some of the newer ones are cool.
I'm not saying they're not cool. I'm just saying they're not they're just cars.
Right. So, but we'll get back to this.
On that note.
Let me get it straight anyway there. But just to be honest as I can be with our listeners, when I'm priced, this is my opinion only. When I'm price shopping a vehicle, I would prefer it to be used at least a year old, any vehicle I buy. I know Nissan doesn't want to hear that, but I don't want to take that drive off, hit. So, that's what got me to looking at the kind of the Rams and stuff, and I'm weighing. And I've seen some 16s now of the Titans, but as most people would agree, I don't think anybody wants to buy a first year platform vehicle, especially used. If it's only somebody's got rid of it right away.
The warranty's not there. I mean, if you were to buy I don't know. Do you know if the warranty is transferable for that's the 100,000 mile warranty?
Well, here's the kicker: 16, they only got a 3-year, 36,000
right
warranty.
What I'm saying is, let's just say for argument's sake, someone bought one, next year, it should still have the 100,000 mile warranty, right?
Yes. If you ever buy a used car, I know in the state of Tennessee, it does. They'll have a tag on it that says, remaining warranty or whatever.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that would be okay, but you're still looking at, if I found a base 16 right now, you're still probably looking at 28,000. Because it is in my area, it's a hot truck right now. I know I was looking at the numbers the other day. Nissan's almost sold 6,000 of the Titans last month.
Yeah, they've been moving.
That's probably beating the Tundra right now. I haven't kept up with the Tundra numbers.
Yeah, the Tundra's hurting. Their numbers are super low. Last time I checked, I wanted to say they were basically evening off on with the Titan.
Yeah, well, I seen them a couple months ago. They were in the $3,000 range, man. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
people are stopped buying the Tundra. So back to my thoughts is, so you look at maybe one of the big threes, and I grew up in a Chevy household. I'm just not a fan of their current trucks. Yeah, me too. I'm not a fan of their current trucks. Ford, the F-150. I know our buddy Luke loves his EcoBoost. It's when you're buying a full size truck, that's a hard one to bite of that. Trucks are manly things, and that, of course, that probably sounds sexist, and it's not meant to be. But it's just when you think of a full size truck, you think, just heavy. I'm going to go work the damn thing to death, and so I've got that going for me. And I know he's pulled his. I think his is a 2013. He's pulled the Went, loves it. Gets great gas mileage, but I think I need a V8, Dan. So then I'm looking at the Ram, and to me, out of the full size trucks, minus Nissan and Toyota, I think Ram has done the best job of actually keeping it looking somewhat like a truck. I like the smooth lines on the side and stuff. So I was looking the other day. Long story short, here, about 24,000 could get me in a Ram. Do I
Hemi Ram?
Yes, a Hemi Ram. And I'm looking at the 4-door crew cab trucks, and that when I'm looking at the price wise, it's that's a nice it's a nice truck too. Of course, it's the big three, so unless it's a Ford, they generally take a hit pretty good after when they're on the used market. But do you so knowing that I would go for a gas Titan, or clearly a gas Ram, do you kind of take that hit and go, well, I'll pay $4,000 more for a newer Titan with a killer warranty? That 5-year
new warranty is super bitching, and they're paying a lot for that. Right. Guaranteed, they're going to be paying a lot for that. I mean, that was a big thing. I remember, the BMWs that had warranties like that, and we did a lot of work on cars like that. A lot of work. I mean, we spent a lot of money on because in 2002, the 7 Series, they had 100,000 mile. They pushed out the warranty 100,000 miles, and I worked on those, and they'd come in at 80,000 miles with so many problems, and I'd fix so much stuff, and it was all warranty, and I was so pissed because warranty doesn't pay as much.
Right.
And you like refurbish the whole car at 80,000 miles, and you're like, geez, man, this person's getting like a brand new car right now, Just putting motors in and stuff. Like, what are we doing right now? But that's a legit warranty. Like, if I see a company do that, I'm like, wow, they're happy about their car, and or they want to make sure that their resale values on those cars are strong. They want those. I applaud Nissan. They want those trucks out there, and they want them running good for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm going to leave this question up to our listeners, and they can post on our Facebook page. If you were in my predicament of needing a full-size vehicle, we're just going to leave it to 2 vehicles, the gas or Titan, the 16 Plus, or say like a 12 to now Ram. And like I said, I know this is a Nissan show. I'm Nissan through and through, but I'm also my wallet through and through. So just give us your opinions on our Facebook page. Kind of let us know. We're not. I'm not want to turn this into the Dodge versus Nissan thing.
Yeah, it could get very ugly very fast. But I want you to know, Dave, that if you buy a Dodge, we can't be friends even.
What? Damn,
I'm sorry.
This is breaking up the show, Danny.
if you're gonna buy a diesel, it has to be a BMW. Anyways, let's move on to the next subject. Comment on our Facebook page if you want to weigh in on this debate on whether or not Dave should buy a Dodge, and if anybody will like him afterwards. Post up on our Facebook page and say, "I don't like Dave anymore if you buy a Dodge." So let's move on, Dave. What else do we got tonight?
Well, we had a couple questions of, one was, what's up with we seen pictures of you in a race truck a couple weeks ago, Danny. I was like, that doesn't look like an Xterra. It was white, but it didn't look.
Yeah.
I didn't see any NNP logos on it. What's going on?
Yes, an internet friend of mine, Glenn. I'm gonna butcher his last name, Tenazawa, something like that. I'm sorry, Glenn. He's a fan of the podcast, and I've been bending his ear because he built this Nissan Frontier. It's a crew cab automatic 4-liter Frontier. He built it, and they raced it in Baja, made it about 320 miles in Baja before they broke in the Baja 1000, and then took it back and rebuilt it again, did some new stuff to it. And before I even started working on my truck, I had followed him and watched all of the stuff that he built on it, and started asking him questions on fuel cell, fuel routing, and just basically taking in what he did. And that's kind of been my prerogative with the race truck is just getting as much, the more info you have, the better. I mean, watching guys build Toyotas and all this stuff, it helps you kind of fine tune what your ideas are and whether you're on the right track or whatnot. So anyways, he hit me up and said, "Hey, some of my friends are going out. They're going to be doing some testing on a Class 10 car for the NORA race, which is it's kind of like the Baja 1000, but it's a bigger party, or it's a better party. It's a little bit more laid back." So some of his friends were racing in the NORA race, and they were going to go down, and this is down in Southern California. And he said they're going to probably take my truck out because the truck is stored over in this this guy's house out in the desert out there. Mm-hmm. He's got a really nice little place out there. He said they're going to take this 10 car out. They're going to probably take the truck out. If you want to go with some of my buddies, he wasn't there. He had some health and family issues, but he said, you know what, go out there and hook up with these guys. He's like, they're great guys. I know them. And so I was like, awesome. I was so pumped. I was in on cloud nine. I'm like, I'll be there, whatever it takes, So I ended up driving maybe 2.5 hours out to what they call the compound. It's a really cool house on a couple acres of land, and this is literally out in the desert next to a marine base. California desert to the max. If you ever go out to the California deserts,
would that be 29 Palms, Danny?
It is right next to 29. How do you know about 29 Palms?
Dude, I know things, Danny.
You're a learned man, sir. Literally, it's like the edge of 29 Palms. So we go out there, and I saw the truck and met the great group of guys. Just, you could tell right away, nice guys, shook hands. They're very inviting. And we drove all of our trucks in a trailer with a 10 car. For those of you who don't know what a 10 car is, it's basically like an unlimited, we call it a car, but it's an unlimited suspension buggy, basically, with an Ecotech motor in, which is a 4-cylinder all aluminum block Chevy 4-cylinder motor. That's the motor that you have to use for that class. But it's a 4-cylinder motor, but it puts out good power, and it's got so much suspension it'll blow your mind. So we went out there and they raced around this 5-mile course with this car, testing it out. They just put the motor in, got some new shocks on it, and I got a ride in that car, which was mind blowing. I had so much fun on that car. Just going over massive whoops at 40 miles an hour like it was nothing. Get back. We drive back to the compound, and then one of the guys says, "Hey."
When you say compound, I just think David Crash.
I know. David Crash sounds. The compound is basically a house and a giant garage. It's like a nice little house.
Okay.
And then a giant garage for the toys. Like that's the compound, and it's on a couple acres. And a couple acres in California, the only way you're going to do that is get out in like the desert. where you either have cool toys or you're a meth head. Basically, that's the area.
All right. So it's Breaking Bad.
So it was super cool. I mean, a great view, great dudes. So we got back to the compound and we were chatting, just hanging out, ate some pizza, and he says, why don't you take the Frontier out? I know Glenn would probably want you to just get a little experience of it.
Oh darn.
So yeah, I was like, yeah, please. It's like kind of why I wanted to get out there. I've been itching to get behind the wheel of my car or truck, and it's still a ways away. So any chance that I can get behind a Nissan race truck just to get a feel, and down the road it'll be a comparison. So, and on top of that, the front suspension on this truck is very similar to what I'm going to be building on my truck. My truck's going to be a little bit wider and 2 more shocks, but at the same time, it was built by the same guy that's building my truck. So I wanted to get even a taste. And plus the Frontier that I drove is 4-wheel drive still. So I got in the truck and drove around. It's not totally tuned up yet. They've done a lot of work since the Baja, but it's got a lot of travel in the front. Compared to the yellow truck, it's a totally different truck. Because like I said, it's got a lot of travel, whereas the yellow truck that we raced is class 7 compliant. So it still had like stock upper control arms. So it was a lot stiffer and a lot more bouncy, whereas this truck really soaked up a lot of stuff. A little bit of rear end issue that they got to figure out, that the rear end real bouncy. So I couldn't get it going too fast or anything, but super cool truck. I mean, and it's so cool to drive a stick in that situation. I mean, I was just like permagrin when I got back. So much fun. It was a really well built truck. And like I said, it just needs a little bit of little tuning, little fix here and there, and it'll probably be a real competitor if he's able to get it out and race it again.
Well, did that make you question yours being automatic to want to go to stick?
I go all over the place with that because there's so many costs with my truck.
Yeah.
And I think back to like how many automatic transmissions go out just because they go out, or not from like the
smod.
What
a place to have that
into the transmission. I've heard a lot of good things about how the strength of the automatic transmission. Mm-hmm. Maybe if I really, it's going to come down to going out and testing it real hard. I may have to put a better torque converter in it. I've got a line on those. So I think I'll be, I don't know. It's a wild card. It'd be nice to have a stick, but in truth, like I think an automatic would be a little bit better for just driving. Well, and awareness, one less thing to worry about.
And 2, for you just getting into this as a driver, it probably simplifies things just a little bit, lets you get a feel for racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one less pedal, one less gear change to focus on. Take your eye off. I mean, Dave Blakely, the owner of the yellow race truck that we raced in the Mint and stuff. I mean, he's been racing that truck for a long time.
Yeah, he knows that truck.
And he's been racing a lot of stuff for a long time. So, he makes it look easy, but I'm sure it's just one more thing to throw in the mix. And I mean, everybody but him was running an automatic transmission, like a Turbo 400 with, a sequential gearbox or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so
we'll
see.
So let's see. Mr. Cody Fletcher is asking, he's like, he wants to know some opinions on good storage ideas for his tools and whatever stuff he needs. And that kind of brings me, I mean, this could go with the racing too, but when you've got tool, wait, what's this?
Oh
wait, this is Tool. Oh, wow. Anyways, so, Danny's all excited over there.
It's my jam, son.
Hell yeah, dude.
This is what we listen to when we have our hat or when our bills flipped up and we have our truck squatting in the backsides.
When the Brodozer.
That's the Pantera, dude.
When the Brodozer comes out. But so So let's see. I know Cody drives he's in a early gen Xterra. So the thing I found is people are building boxes in the back of that thing, Cody. And I know my buddy over at Smith Overland, I know he's done some first gen boxes before, and that dude is an artist in what he does. But some sort of pull out box is what I would do. Something thin. I see a lot of these boxes that are like these expo boxes. They just, I mean, it's like a dresser drawer you're pulling out of there, and it's just too much, I think. Did you ever, Danny, I know you've been around the forums and stuff for these a lot. Did you ever remember Kuma's box that he had custom built, and he had like individual spots for every tool in foam and stuff? It was
I remember seeing that. It's very very militaristic of him, because that's how we roll in the military. We have foam cutouts of everything and stuff.
No, but for trails and stuff, that's a great idea. I mean, if you've got
absolutely.
For screwdrivers and stuff, who cares? But just your ratchets and stuff. So
I will say, Cody, go through your entire kit, and this is something that I've done like 3 or 4 times now. Go through your entire kit. Think of what crescent wrenches you can get rid of with a vice grips, or do you need a crescent wrench, or paring down your toolkit to specific jobs of what has the most probability of breaking. Do I have the tools to fix those probabilities? And who am I on the trail with? Maybe you have a kit that you would take to Gun Moab where there's like 5 guys with 5 different kits. I kind of put together my kit before I go to Gun Moab, because I know usually there's a couple people with kits, so I have a slightly more pared down kit. But
if you look at the
pair your kit to your trip is what I would suggest.
And look at the service manual on these vehicles. Working for Nissan, everything was you only had maybe 3 or 4 actual.
12,
I know
10,
8, 10,
8, 10, 13, 12, 15, and 14. And then there's some large ones for wheels and hubs and stuff like that. But in truth, you don't need a full socket set.
Yeah, you're not out there to, you don't got a lift out on the trails and you're just going to start doing. But they, anymore when they build these vehicles, they don't want many changes on these parts, because they're trying to do this as quickly as possible. So they use as few and many sizes as they can get away with. So just kind of look at the manual. You can get that. I know Nico has a manual on the Xterras and like most vehicles. But if you look at kind of what they have, bolt wise, I would look at that and kind of go from there. And like Danny said, do you need a crescent wrench or will the vice grips get you through?
1 BFH.
Yes, and a hammer.
Yeah.
I keep and if you see my video from a couple of years ago where I caved in the fenders of my bumper and all that, they do come in handy. So man, I keep me a 4-pound engineering hammer in my toolbox, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. Pair your toolkit to your projects, because anybody could throw their entire tool. If I put my toolbox in my truck, I'd have to get new springs. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you're supposed to bring a full toolkit on a trail. Some people do, some people don't. It's personal preference.
It's a very guy thing to do though, because it's an ego thing, really. Because you want
like fully prepared for everything.
Yeah.
I think if you have certain things, tie rods, axle shafts, depending on what model truck you have, make sure you have the if it's the hub nut or your like I said, your tie rods, you make sure you have your 16 or 18 and 17, a crescent wrench for that size, or a large vice grips so that you can lock onto those nuts. Be aware of what you will probably fix. The 99% of the time you're going to break this or that. Have a couple of adjustable wrenches for stuff like, if your battery terminal comes off. Simple stuff like that you can fix on the trail. And then I would also say and this is what I carry the classic male fixing stuff, baling wire, duct tape, stuff that's light, but you can fix stuff with that tape that seals off hoses and stuff, that just, I'm a backpacker like from back in the day. So all my stuff is like you band-aid it to get off the trail, and then you have somebody bring their toolbox out to fix it. That's
Right.
like my theory.
Yeah, and it's a couple of years ago. Our buddy Aaron Powers, man, I got the dude broke a torsion bar, and I got him out of there with using no tools, and I used a piece of log.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, just sandwiched in between the control arms.
Yeah, and basically, like Danny was saying, take notes when you're repairing something at home. Take notes of what tools that you actually use to repair that, and then just kind of keep a list of what's going on.
You should know what tools you need to change an axle shaft, a tie rod, maybe. If your radiator blows, how are you going to fix that?
Right.
Just a couple simple things. You go through a couple scenarios and plan for those scenarios, and then you can start moving into the wild scenarios and say, okay, can I get by with what I have? If I can't, maybe what are some more than one tools? A tool that can do more than one job. Let's start adding those.
And this is where I'm jealous of the car guys, man. The car guys, when they go to the track, they put their car generally on a trailer or something, so those guys can carry a toolbox with them, man. But off-roaders, you're a little,
you're out in the middle of nowhere. And again, it depends where you're going and what you're doing. If you're going with 40 guys on a trail, and there's 40 toolboxes on the trail, I don't know how many times I took my toolbox totally out of my truck because I was like, I'm going with Chris Haynes because he's got 14 toolboxes. There's no reason for me to even have one.
Right.
Or likewise with Chris, he's got the tools for any major fix. Chris has a great toolkit. I think he had no, he didn't. He has a great toolkit for the trail that'll do the jobs that you need to do. Mm-hmm. And then it's got a couple extra tools, whether it's a crescent wrench or a little Allen kit or whatever. Just don't go hog wild and put 40 pounds of tools in there because you're just carting around weight.
Right. And vice grips are probably my number one thing to carry with me because they're so.
Oh yeah, brake lines.
Man, I broke
nuts.
I broke a brake line on a trail, and we literally just pinched it off with some vice grips, and it got me home. Yeah. I was 45 minutes from home, and it got me there. So.
And I was on a trail, and like my nipples were tingling so bad, and I just needed them pinched. And bada bing, bada boom, hung that thing off there, and you're set.
Well, so I hope that answers it, Cody. Man, I mean it varies for what you're comfortable with, but minimal is generally better on the trails. Let's see, Danny. We got also asked tonight about maintenance. And especially on higher mileage vehicles, what would you do? And we'll just say Xterra. We'll just because that's one of our favorite vehicles. What would you do for maintenance? And Nissan has a recommended things at I forget like 30,000 for. Oh God, it's off. I can't think of it. Anyways, like 50, 60,000 is where they start doing tranny fluids, stuff like that. Your
diff fluids, yeah, stuff like that.
But. This is a tricky question because, for one, did you buy the vehicle new? If you bought the vehicle new, you kind of know how it was serviced and, what was done previously. But when you start buying a used vehicle, say 150, 200,000 miles on it, I couldn't tell you how that transmission's been serviced, man. And, like, transmissions especially, I say leave them alone. At some point, it's probably going to go out on you. You could do a manual fluid change on it, but I sure wouldn't flush it because there's all kinds of little metal shavings in there from just wear and tear. You start flushing them, man, you start opening up yourself to problems. What do you think on stuff like that, Danny?
I think on trans fluid at like 100,000 miles, I think is a good trans fluid just to drain and fill. You're gonna keep a lot of that fluid that's in the unless you're talking about automatic trans, you're going to have a lot of fluid in your torque converter. So if you drain and fill your trans, you're going to get about half, maybe 3/4 fluid out of it. And I think that's good enough to keep it from having problems. I think if I remember right, the new synthetic Matic S fluid that they've been running in these and that they changed to because of the S mod, which is the strawberry milkshake of death, which I think we've gone into about the transmission and the coolant mixing, but they changed to a different transmission fluid that was it's like a kind of like a lifetime fluid. But I think high mileage is very dependent on how you use your truck, what you use it for, and how you do those miles. So if you just drive your truck like a baby and don't do much of anything, I would stick to the factory guidelines and do it like that. If you take your truck and you're towing with it and you're beating on it, like, I mean, I tow with my truck, I take it out and I beat on it hard. I'm running the diffs through water and stuff like that. So my timeline of changing my diff fluids is going to be totally different from average Joe that just drives around and does nothing. So I check and or change my fluids at a somewhat regular basis, whether it's depending on how many trips I do a year or if I know I've gone and done a bunch of trips where I'm plugging my diffs into water, or it's a situation where I'm locking my diffs up a lot, where there's just way more gear contact and pressures and stuff like that. I may change my gear, my diff fluids at maybe every 2 years or something like that. So I would say kind of keep that in mind when you're going, when you look through your service manual and it says, change your diff fluid at every 80,000 or 60,000, and say, okay, you know what, maybe I beat the piss out of my truck. In truth, you can't hurt it by changing it too much as far as diff fluid is concerned. But please, 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 please use the correct fluid for your truck. Don't go out and be like, this might work, and stuff some weird freaking junk. Stick to the weights that your truck requires from the factory. It's very important, especially in the transmission
and gears, because I see a lot of times where people, a lot of times there's limited slips in these vehicles and people will put a gear oil that's not for that.
It's really important. Yeah, that, and I always say spark plugs are like 100,000 miles in my opinion.
And I think that's what I think Hondo's on them.
Unless you, and again, if you put a bad tune on your motor and you ran it and super lean or super rich for a while and then realized it, and et cetera, et cetera. If you're messing with that stuff, then you got to start thinking, okay, you know what? I probably fouled up my plugs really good running it super rich for a couple months and realizing that I ran it super rich. So those things will affect if your truck runs super lean or super rich, you can burn up plugs pretty quickly doing that. And if, let's just say you ran a tank of bad gas, maybe you went out to the sticks and got a tank of bad gas, that can cause buildup on your spark plugs. So these are all things to kind of think about when you're thinking about high mileage vehicles or doing service. You can't really just go by a cookie cutter thing because you know your truck the best yourself. So that's my 2 cents.
2 cents, huh?
I think that was like $200. That was $200 worth of knowledge on you right there.
Well, ultimately, it's
that way to me.
Ultimately, it's knowing your vehicle. I think that's number one, because even if you buy your vehicle used, like probably 3/4 of America does, it you just gotta know how, like Danny said, you gotta know how you tear it up, how your conditions. Like you said, the spark plugs, 100,000 mile on the new ones is what Nissan recommends. But did you tamper with the tuning, like Danny said, or did you can foul a plug out fairly easily, and that screws everything up. The new coils and these things.
Yeah. Do you tow consistently with your Frontier? Like, is it being put under heavy loads regularly? If you're doing those kind of things, think about possibly bumping up your the diff changes and or spark plugs changing your air filter regularly is always just a good thing to do as well.
Failure to
Some men
communicate.
you just can't reach.
That's appropriate right there, I think.
That's true.
Everybody's going to do what everybody wants to do, but definitely kind of keep in mind what Nissan recommends. Balance it out from there. I'm bad about like diff fluids. I'm horrible about changing out, and it's the easiest thing in the world to do. But I'm just like,
Well, and they're not cheap either. I mean, I will say diff fluids not. It's probably $100.
Really?
If you get good
well, I
diff
guess
fluid.
yeah, front and rear, yeah.
Yeah, if you change front and rear, I mean you're looking at about 4 bottles. If I remember right, it's about 4 bottles. If
I think it's about
picking up, Mobile One or something like that.
I think in the rear it's like almost a 2-bottle thing, just under. What's your opinion of switching to your oils, Danny? Say you bought a used vehicle, you have unless somebody writes it in the journal or something somewhere, you have no idea what it is. And say this vehicle is right at 100,000 miles. Most everybody loves synthetic today. Early on with synthetics, there was issues with
seals and stuff like that.
Yeah, but now the way they've got the synthetics blended is they coat those seals real well, man. Would you switch?
I'm a big fan of synthetics, especially for. I think the reason I'm a big fan of synthetics is because you can go a little bit longer on mileage between oil changes. They don't break down as quickly, and I tend to push them a little bit longer on the mileage. I don't want to change my I don't want to change my oil every 4,000 to 5,000 miles. It's ridiculous.
Right.
I don't know how people did it back in the day.
Oh, my father growing up was a hardliner at 3K, dude.
3K. That was the thing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, synthetics can go 10K. Like they can go 15K depending on motors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if I can do it at 7 to 10 with synthetics, yeah, it costs a little bit more, but man, it's a pain in the butt cheeks. It's so
trucks.
I like synthetics
trucks aren't
because
bad.
they
trucks to change oil for me aren't bad because you can slide under it, do it, it's done.
Yeah, that's
cars. I for one, I hate changing oil anyways, but I'll do it on my trucks. On my G35, no, it was going to Nissan, man, because I was not jacking that thing up.
And every once in a while, I'll see a nice little deal from Nissan, and I'll take it over to them. It's probably about $20 more than if I was to do it myself. But you know what? Not having to deal with getting rid of the oil, stuff like that, and it's not 1950 where you dump it in. You dump it where you're going to probably put some cement later in your life or something like that.
You don't go pour it in the creeks and rivers?
Yeah, right.
Poor fishies.
But yeah, so I've paid for a couple oil changes over at Nissan. When they throw a deal out, it's like $70. I'm like, well, I'm going to spend $50 on oil anyways. What's the big deal?
I could kill you right now because my dealership, they do a $20 oil change.
Not for synthetic.
No, not for synthetic, but just in general. It's like, I don't know how they do it. They're giving money away.
Yeah, I have Nissan put synthetic in it.
Nice.
They got a good synthetic oil. I think. Who knows?
So you're kind of okay with switching out anytime?
I'm very okay. I think that's a pretty old thing. With saying it's going to leak more with engine seals, etc. For our trucks and for Nissan vehicles, I don't think it's going to start leaking. There are very few problems with oil leaks on our trucks. The older
I found one.
older Xterras and stuff like that, you see some rear main seals and maybe some valve covers and stuff like that. Have you experienced an oil leak on any of your second gen stuff?
Yes. The seal, and come to find out, is common. Even though I keep up with these things, but this one is fairly common that I didn't know about. Was behind the oil filter. There's another seal behind it. So when you take
it's like the oil filter housing piece that comes off of that.
There's a little rubber seal behind that, and it's fairly common. And man, I was chasing this leak down for a year, and I thought, well,
tightening oil filter, like son of a bitch, I thought I'd tighten this somewhere down.
No, this sounds horrible, but I was teaching Kelly. Kelly's pretty handy, but I was going through her, making sure she knew how to maintenance her own vehicle, and I let her change the oil, I let her tighten the filter down and stuff, and I thought, oh great, she's over tightened the thing, and I thought, well, I'll get it next oil change. It can drip a little bit, it'll be fine. And nope, it kept dripping, and finally finally I wised up. Like most things you can find on YouTube, you start you do a Google search and then there's a video for, hey, this is a $10
so do you
part.
just pull that little housing off, put a new seal in, and slide the housing back on, I'm guessing.
So where you spin the filter on, it's got the little threaded piece, and if you look, there's like a 22 millimeter nut there. That's where the threading is. You back that off, pull it out, pop the new seal. There's a guide for where the seal goes. Pop it in. It's a 30-minute deal that
That's
fixes
like
it.
Nothing.
And I see a lot of older ones that guys that aren't as mechanically inclined that go, man, my truck's leaking oil, and I'm like, dude, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, in truth, that's from a lot of motors that I've seen, like the 4.0 really doesn't have a ton of problems.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple that are known. The early model with the timing chain guides, where.
Wait, I think that's just a common issue altogether, right?
Yeah, I think, and it could be more high mileage, but I think the early models have the problems with the most. Maybe that's because of mileage, but I wanted to say it was an early model. And for those of you that don't know, timing, if your truck sounds like it's supercharged and it's not, most likely it's the timing chain guides.
Yeah, it's a little plastic.
Fun fact for you. Yeah, a little plastic piece that the timing chain slides over. Anyways, there's that. There's the like we said, the SMOD, which is easily fixable with, in 20 minutes you can fix that. So they're very stout motors, and if you keep them up and you're aware of the problems, I always can, like I said, this is going on number 3 now where I'm mentioning my BMW days, compared to many BMWs of the same era. Valve cover gaskets leaking stuff, and I've worked on other cars too. I mean, there's some other cars that lots of problems with the motors just leaking or breaking this, or water pumps and stuff like that. You really just don't see too much of that.
Well, I know that we had some more questions, Danny, but I want to kind of end it there. I know you had a tech tip that you wanted to get to this week.
I got it's a simple tech tip, and maybe you can take something away from this. So a lot of people have been, I don't want to say a lot of people have been complaining. We've heard a lot of problems with whether it's alignment or blown tie rods or whatnot on the trails and stuff like that, or just truck's not aligning correctly, or I feel like I got play. And now that there's trucks getting high mileages on them, and this kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier. Tie rods wear on the inner tie rod, and tie rods wear on the outer tie rod. There's 2 separate tie rods, and they basically screw together. On the inner, it's a ball basically in a socket, almost like your shoulder, and that can wear out, and it will get super, super loose and start getting play, as well as the tie rod on the outer tie rod, which that ball joint, which is a ball and socket that bolts downwards into your spindle, that can get worn out as well. I mean, it's a sealed boot, but that boot is, it's rubber and can start deteriorating, and moisture gets in there, and it just starts metal on metal wear. So those can wear out really quickly. Once they start failing, they start wearing out very quickly, and that can cause serious alignment problems. And so we wanted to give you guys all a heads up. If you feel like, maybe you got an alignment and your truck's still all over the place or something, jack your truck up and give your wheel a shake, top to bottom, side to side, and see if you feel any play. Put an eye on your tie rods while you do that. Maybe unbolt them and move them around. If the inner tie rod doesn't have any kind of tension, I guess, when you're moving it around, that ball joint is just loosey goosey flopping around in there. The same with the outside, flopping around, and you almost feel that hard, nasty, grindy metal to metal contact, where you almost feel play in there. There's a good chance you have a bad tie rod. So check your tie rods and lube your ball joints. I always tell everybody to lube their ball joints.
Well, those are
even though you can't really on our truck.
yes, unless you buy aftermarket, you can't really lube much. Well,
I lube my ball joints regularly.
Nice, dude. Those are definitely good tips on that. I know I've experienced some of those problems, and you always worry in these trucks that you screwed up a rack and pinion somehow, which seems to be pretty rare, really. I know people that have blown them out, but that's I'm a doomsdayer, man. If I start feeling something funny in the front end, I'm like, it can't be simple. It's got to be the worst thing possible. So
yeah, yeah.
Well, so next time, boys and girls, we're trying to, we talked about a couple shows now. We're trying to nail back down our big fish, the Drift King. But other than that, he's out this weekend in Long Beach, competing right now. So it'll be a minute before he's back into chill mode till he can drift our way.
Yeah, it's the Long Beach Grand Prix, I believe.
Next show,
so one of the days.
Next show, I want to do something special, Danny. I want to dedicate it to tires, and this can go for cars or trucks. But grip is king, whether you're on the trails or on the streets, man. And I want to challenge our viewers to kind of post up on Facebook. We can start a topic. Me and Danny can start one on there, and you guys give us the lowdown on what you think is the tire of choice for off-roading or your street vehicle, whether it be something from Michelin, BFG, Cooper, even the dreaded tread rights or whatever they're called. Man, tell us why why you chose that tire. Is it for economy reasons? Is it they just look big and badass on the trails, or you want something that sticks on the track? So I really want to dedicate the next show to that, because our buddies over at the Toyota podcast, man, they sort of slipped into this a month or two ago, and when I was listening, I was like, man, I gotta steal their topic. No, really, they kind of accidentally got into this like 40-minute debate about tires, and it got me thinking. And of course, we all have different vehicles, but rubber is rubber. It meets the road or it meets the trails, and so go ahead, Nick.
And Dave, I don't know if you know this, but I used to work at a company called America's Tire Company, and so I'm basically an expert at tires.
Danny's an expert at odd-sized tires because he always likes to do something different.
I like to slip in a different size rubber every once in a while.
Well, sometimes you got to go tight, and sometimes you want to go a little loose on there.
Sometimes you gotta work with what your skinnies. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so Danny, do you, before we close this shop down, man, do you got anything else you want to throw out there?
As always, I have a solid nbsplifts.com plug. Just a heads up for all you guys, we're going to be giving away a Molly panel for a lucky winner. So keep an eye on our NISTech Facebook page. We're going to be announcing a nice little giveaway for you guys. And as always, please shop nistechlifts.com and xterraperformance.com because they sponsor the show. They help out sponsoring all kinds of clubs and events and stuff like that. So, if you would take the time to shop with them and buy your parts from them, Chris and Steven and Derek are always willing to answer the phone and answer your questions. They're huge on customer service. So hit them up, nistechlifts.com.
That's right. And if they don't have it and it's something common, go to amazon.com. And how would you go to amazon.com, Danny? You would use our website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a banner link down there, and we say it every show. We get a couple pennies from your purchases. Doesn't cost you any extra. Amazon donates that money to us, and it's just there, like, to track where their customers come from. So whether it be your baby's diapers, pet supplies, I don't care, adult supplies, whatever you need, man. I found out, by accident, you put the wrong thing in the search bar. You're like, whoa, this takes you to the dark side of Amazon. Let's back out. Wait, what is that? It's an hour of looking at, these weird horse crops. I don't know what they are, man. But go to Amazon, use our banner ad, and it's that simple, man. It just basically keeps this little pirate ship floating down the river, man. That's all it does.
And as well, give us, if you guys would be willing to, if you enjoy the show and you think we're cool and you want us to keep doing what we do, please rate us on iTunes or whatever you're using. It really helps with spreading our podcast seed all over the iTunes world. So throw us up a rating. Obviously, the better rating, the better we get. And you know what? Please interact with us on our Facebook page, because what we want to make sure and give you guys what you want to hear, and we don't know what you want to hear unless you tell us. So else we'll just keep yammering on the Dave and Danny show, friggin' yammering what we got.
And I posted up earlier, we want to talk to some people outside the States, man. I know we've got a little bit of a following on Australia now. They got their old patrol GQs, all that stuff. I want to talk to some people down there. We've forever tried to get our buddy from Johannesburg on this show, man. And
yeah,
it's weird, the whole time thing, man. It's like I'm asleep when he's awake, and one day
it's a hard one.
One day we'll crack that egg. And I don't care where you're from, man. We want to talk to some people outside, and we definitely want to talk to some car people. Also, I've got an update coming on from, you remember Joel, the guy that had the G35? He put the Titan.
Yeah,
we've got an update
5.6.
We've got an update coming, man. He's not happy with that car yet, man. He's doing mad science things.
Just moving and shaking, huh? Sweet.
Yeah. So I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he was interested in coming back on the show. And if there's a guest also that we've talked to that you kind of want to know more about, let us know. Other than maybe Holden Scott, with Regal Nissan, we'll have anybody back on the show.
Yeah, Holden got barred from the Nissan Nation podcast after he took that child's sucker and then slapped a baby and then ate their lollipop.
And then he charged the parents like 20% more at the dealership.
Yeah, and then he beat up the baby's dad. I mean, it was really rude.
So hashtag baby's dad.
Be ashamed of yourself.
Hashtag Holden baby's dad.
But we love you, Holden.
That's right, man. We love all of our guests. And so on that, guys, I want to say we definitely appreciate it. Our numbers have jumped way up here lately, guys. So we know you're sharing the page, and we appreciate that a lot. So from everybody here at the Nissan Nation podcast, my name is David Boyd. And Danny, what are we going to be? Peace, everybody. Love y'all.